Well, welcome to King's Backyard Farming. This episode we're going to be looking at compost. Why we do composting and how we do it on the farm, and then how we're going to do it into your garden. So today we've got our first guest speaker, Ian Golding from 864 Connect Agricultural Services. So Ian, tell us what you do.
Well, Mitchell, as you know, we both have a passion about biological agriculture with the aim of producing mineral-dense foods that have got a high nutritional value. And so the soil is the most important part of any farming operation, and we have to look after it and we have to build it to create some resilience and continuous production of good quality product. So one of the key elements is how do we build the soil? And as you know, most of the soils in the Northern Territory, tropical soils, heavily leached and have very low organic carbon levels in its natural state. Organic carbon is the most important part of the soil in as much as that it contributes to the formation of humus. And humus is a very complex product or food source, and it helps to retain moisture in the soil. It's a home for microbes, and more importantly, the mineral exchange between the soil, the clay and the plant, so the nutrients can be absorbed correctly into the plant.
Ian, you're saying that we are capturing carbon.
Well, that's it. One of the drivers of all this is to build carbon. In fact, you build the organic carbon levels or the humus levels in the soil just by 1%, and you get 4 times the moisture holding capacity. So that makes a huge difference to the farming costs, as well as the health of the soil and the right habitat for the soil microbes, particularly the bacteria and the fungi.
So with the mulching, we're putting carbon in to help breed bacteria and fungus. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes. I guess the first part of a compost is it generally comes in a raw state. So it may have a lot of other pathogens and unhealthy bacteria, things like E. coli in it as well. So the first stage in a composting operation is the heating phase.
E. coli are pretty nasty.
Well, yes, it's potentially lethal to humans, and it has to be managed correctly. And it's the bacteria and the heat in the pile in the initial stages that kills all the pathogens that might be in the raw product.
Not just E. coli, it kills everything.
Everything.
Seeds?
And seeds as well, yes. So all your weeds and your seeds, everything will get killed if you manage the temperature correctly. And temperature in the first phase is vitally important to manage, because you can get it over hot and kill all the beneficial bacteria and fungi. You get it too cold and all the other pathogens can still live through the process.
So how are we controlling the temperature in this cow manure that we've got here?
Okay, there's three parts to a compost. Brown, which is usually dry cellulose material, and that's got the carbon ratio of about 100 to 1. Then you need green, and green is like grasses or something with a higher nitrogen level, because the bacteria need a lot of nitrogen to reproduce and to feed. And the third part of it is you need a carbon source. And so the carbon source is obviously delivered in cow manure as a common base product in the Northern Territory.
Yep.
So once we compile those in a certain ratio, then we can have the correct reactions. We measure the temperature on a regular basis. We don't want the temperature to get above 68 degrees because otherwise we're getting into problems. And we also need to have the right amount of moisture, around 50% moisture, during the initial heating phase.
So how are we stopping the temperature getting too high?
Well, the way to do that is with this compost tumbler. We need 3 things that we all need: oxygen, food, and airspace. And so that's what this compost turner does, is it aerates the compost. It helps to break down the cellulose or the brown material in it, and mix things evenly so that the bacteria can evenly digest the raw materials.
So the bacteria are eating the raw materials and building up in the soil to become a beneficial product when we put it out in the orchard.
Correct. And you see, a plant needs to have it in a biological form for it to be able to uptake it, just like ourselves. And we can't take in raw material into our bodies. So this process of composting is stabilising, sterilising, and making the new minerals in the compost plant available. And that's all done with the biology, the bacteria and the fungi.
So let me get this straight, just for everyone that's watching. We need that bacteria, even if we're putting on a fertiliser that we've purchased from a supermarket or we buy ours from Elders. We need that bacteria to transform that fertiliser into a product that the plant can use.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of people get caught out. In fact, there's only one element that can be taken up into a plant with the water, and that is nitrate nitrogen. Sometimes you can get potassium up through the water. Every other mineral, and there's 81 minerals minimum that a plant needs for healthy growth, have all got to come through the biological ingestion process to be able to come up into the plant in an available form. So
if we don't have this biological activity happening in our soil, which we're putting in with this, then even if we put fertiliser on, most of it's just wasted.
Correct. That's exactly right. And there's a big misconception. If I've got a liquid fertiliser, the water is just going to take it straight up into the plant, and that is incorrect. If in the cases it does get taken up into the plant, it's usually in the wrong form, and then you get the DNA in the plant don't function properly. They produce, you might call it like a cancerous cell or a misformed cell, and then that becomes the source of disease in the plants. So it's vital to get your soil healthy. And just to give you an example, in a healthy soil, in 1 teaspoon of soil, there's 50,000 different types of bacteria.
Wow.
And
that's a healthy soil.
That's a healthy soil. And you know, scientists have only identified about 5,000 to 8,000 different species of bacteria. So there is so much in the soil that most scientists and agricultural people don't know about. So we don't worry about what we don't know about. All we know is that nature has its way to make it available. Now, sadly, most soils with the normal inorganic fertiliser process would be lucky to have 150,000 bacteria in a teaspoon of soil.
Yep.
But a healthy soil needs like 500,000 or 600,000 bacteria. So you can imagine the numbers we're talking about. We're talking about trillions of bacteria and fungi being born and stored in this compost to inoculate the soil. That's the key to composting, healthy gardening and healthy farming.
Well, we certainly could sit here for a long time talking about this. So. Thank you very much,
Ian.
You're
It's
welcome. Been great having you
welcome.
on our YouTube channel today. And here at King's Farms, we really enjoy working with you, and we're seeing an amazing result on the farm.
So thank you. And it's just as much fun for me as anything else, because I'm learning just as much as everybody else, I can tell you. Even though I've got a good background information, you're still learning. Every day I learn something, and it's marvellous. And that's what gardening brings to everybody, a sense of joy and a sense of learning and a connection with nature. And that's what really is great about gardening and farming.